Hey, what's going on? This is Instructor Mike, and this is Dad I Wish I Knew, where we talk about all the things that we wish we knew before we became parents. Like, my God, there is so much. And I think that, there are several statements and phrases that could be used, but one of them that sticks and holds so true is a child not embraced by the village will burn it to feel its warmth. That's the first one. And then the second one is a smart person learns from their mistakes, but a wise person learns from the mistakes of others. Okay. And so, for those of you all who are coming in, we definitely are going to drop the link. We definitely are going to invite you up. I know I'm also streaming not only from Dad I Wish I Knew, but from Instructor Mike as well, that page, as well as Facebook and the Instructor Mike Facebook page. And I know those of you all who follow Instructor Mike, you're not following for mental health purposes. You're definitely following for firearms and firearms related content. And those things do matter. But we are in the wake of an active shooting that just took place, two of them, in fact, one in St. Louis and one of them in Virginia, the University, yeah, UVA. And we are going to, yeah, you said, man, that thumbnail has me thinking my man Kevin Samuels was back. Well, this channel and channels like it are in the spirit of Kevin Samuels because not a lot of people agreed with his delivery, but the message was definitely on point. And on this page, we are definitely going to talk a lot about childhood trauma. So we will drop the link so that way you can come on. But I want to introduce you to my wonderful guest. You've seen him multiple times in the comments. And I'm introducing to you Kelly Billings. He currently works as a chaplain, spiritual counselor with hospice patients. Prior to that, he worked inpatient mental health chaplain in the Portland VA hospital. Okay. Shouts out to the veterans. I'm a veteran myself. Okay. Before that, he spent several years assisting refugees in the Middle East. He's led groups and mobilized volunteers in domestic and international efforts in crisis context. Kelly is a former United Methodist minister. He currently holds a non-denominational ordination. He's led various advocacy initiatives for refugees, racial reconciliation, homelessness, and mental health awareness. He holds a bachelor's of management and ethics and a master's in applied theology from the University of Bristol, England. Kelly has completed Richard Rohr's Living School, the United Nations Disaster Ready Humanitarian Aid courses, Harvard University's Building a Better Response course, and he is a certified mental health first aid instructor. I looked that up today. It's a pleasure to have you here on this show. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Mike, man. It's an honor to be here. I've been following you for a bit and just love a lot of your content. Don't always agree with you, but most of the time I do and still respect you otherwise.
That's it.
But yeah, no, it's a good voice and we definitely need good, wise, calm voices now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the link right now and I'm going to invite you all to come up if you want to. This is a safe space for you to be able to come up and ask questions. And let's talk about childhood trauma. I think it's important to create more of these safe spaces. Now, whether you choose to camera up or not, that's on you. Yesterday, we had an amazing show. People chose not to camera up and some did. So I invite you to go back and look at some of that other content. So I'm going to drop the link now. And if you choose to come up, the topic of discussion for today is what would you ask a parent if you had the ability to? What would you ask them? Like something you wanted to know about their childhood, the childhood trauma. Yesterday, we dealt with a wonderful topic as it relates to what was it, a mother who had been in an affair with a father who was with a man who was married. We want to call her a mother because she hadn't been a mother yet, but a woman who was involved in a affair with a man who was married, and from that came a child. And the child was the product of that because the mother wanted to spite the father, and the child, in essence, was taken away from the father by the mother. And so later on, the lady looks up the father, and then there's a bit of reconciliation, but there's a bit of pushback, if you will, a bit of pushback for him not wanting to, I guess, step on anyone's toes because he kind of had to tread lightly, and it was a wonderful statement that came as a result of that. So those of you all sounding off in the comments, who is brave to come up? Who is brave to come up? What are some of the things you might have heard, Kelly, in your time that spawned very wonderful conversations, or even conversations that went south as it relates to childhood trauma and some of the people that you dealt with?
Yeah, man. I think most of us, we're carrying stuff, and often we've hid it down. And sometimes we've repressed it until we don't remember it,
Right.
As a safety mechanism, a coping mechanism. Sometimes we just kind of ignore it, and like that happened, and that made me tougher. And both working with veterans and inpatient mental health, and also with hospice patients.
Sure.
And you hear a lot once mom or dad becomes mentally responsive, and they're and then the adult child can start talking and say, this is what childhood was, and this is a really tough time. I love mom, I love dad, and they're getting ready to cross over, but life wasn't easy. And I had one recently. Let's see, I don't want to give away too much information, but I had one like 99-year-old World War II vet, literally war hero by all the definitions. Delegation from France came over and presented him with their highest Medal of Honor about 10 years ago, and just had this status as a war hero. But man, the family's like, he was really rough on us. And they started talking about a lot of trauma and a lot of abuse and a lot of this. And, and people get to the end of life and they're like, oh man, I wish I could talk to dad about this. I wish I could talk to mom about this, because they've been carrying all this trauma around. And now they're trying to process the grief, their love for this person. And, I think we in the States, we don't do very well with holding paradox of loving somebody, but also being angry at somebody.
Sure.
And it's hard often to navigate those. And we usually choose one or the other.
Yeah.
And we get stuck there, and we kind of ignore the bad, or we just totally focus on the bad. And I think, anytime we can create what you said, a safe space for us to talk about these things, we might not be able to talk to our family first.
Mm-hmm.
We might have to talk to everybody else that's safe and wise. Now, we don't have to tell everybody everything we know, because everybody ain't going to treat it sacred. And everybody ain't going to treat it safe.
That's true. That's true.
So we need to be wise about that. But some of it is like, being able to practice these conversations or have these conversations and, ask a parent or just say to a parent. And, one of the things in hospice that we talk to folks about is like, we all can say, I love you, I forgive you, please forgive me, and thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the VA hospital, man, I used to hear a lot of soldiers and sailors and Marines and all Air Force people, all these vets who went in because of some kind of pressure from the family, or like my dad was a master staff, but I had to go in I had to go in and outrank dad. And that was really their driving force. And a lot of people, and living this life that was often driven by anger or trying to prove oneself instead of pursuing one's own life path.
Sure. Do you ever find that the childhood trauma is a motivating factor in even the decision to get into the military?
Yeah. I think, for a lot of people, they were escaping something, and the military was like the easiest way out.
Sure.
For a lot of folks, it was like, oh yeah, dad and grandpa and everybody was, and shouts out to our female vets too. They just don't have that generational background with female vets, but shouts out to them. but maybe dad or mom was a vet and like, oh, I've got to live up to their standard. I've got to live up to their shadow. I've got to show them I'm worthy.
One of the things that I've seen, especially in the military, because I got married when I was in the military, 20 years old. I think that, and I'm going to say something, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because your opinion definitely matters. And I always yield to those who I feel I can learn something from, which you can learn something from everyone, but I'm sure you get what I mean. I believe that the military is a Maslow's hierarchy of needs cure that covers about everything except love and belonging. Like from about maybe 05, to about 1700. Oh, we're covering your meals. We're giving you constant stuff to do. You got PT, you got, PMCS, you got a bunch of different stuff that's going on. And you got chow. Then after that, you got whatever you're doing in the afternoon. Then 1700, you're doing the final to the colors. I believe that's what it is. Reveille to the colors. Then after that, it's a void. It's a huge void. And it's like, that's where all the things, First Sergeant gives you the briefing of the day or the briefing of the weekend. And then all of a sudden, woohoo, you're ready to go. And if you're like at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, you're hitting 41A. Or if you're Bragg, you're going off base. You're going off base to do some of everything your first sergeant told you not to do. Sergeant Major told you not to do. Chief Petty Officer told you, you're going to do that. And does that make it seem like the military is a Maslow's hierarchy of needs void, where if you look at the strategic placement, and I'll land with this, the strategic placement of where military bases are, they're placed in areas where it's so much of a void there where it's easy to attract them because you can pull them away and take them to a better place where it is for the most part, right? But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I grew up a couple hours from Bragg, and spent some time down there on and off, with some folks and doing some contract work with some friends after they came out of the service. And if you've been to Bragg, ain't nothing else. Pope Air Force Base, that's it. That's the only thing that's around there. And I wonder, and I'm not a vet, so let me be clear about that. But I wonder if the military does create a false sense of connection and compassion and belonging that we try to replicate in various ways when we come out of the service, that's unsustainable.
Okay. I can see that.
I mean, that's the question. I don't put it out as a statement. I put it out as a question.
And I'm going to tell you how. It's profound that you said that, because when you're in the field amongst each other 24/7, you got a camaraderie. When you're in combat, camaraderie for the most part. When you're training, for the most part, camaraderie. When you're in garrison on the base, camaraderie for the most part. You see what I'm saying? Camaraderie, you got it, right? Yeah. And then it's there, and then I'll give you even this. We'll go you even further. Basic allowance for quarters, basic allowance for housing, basic allowance for substance, commissary. Everything you need is within that thing, that community. And then you hear the stories of, oh, you're a veteran. When you are a veteran, you'll go on out, you'll be able to get jobs. You'll be able to get support. You'll be able to get this. You'll be able to get that. And then you get this expectation that it's gonna be that way when you get out, when in fact it's not.
Right. And for some people, if you're wounded or injured while in the service, I've been told you quickly learn how fast that evaporates once you're no longer effective, and you're a broke blank.
Yeah, because now you're not useful to the group, and then because you're not useful to the group, or your condition is aggravated by military service and you're chaptered out, still with an honorable, still able to go to college, still able to do this, then, I'm pretty sure you've heard me say previously, unreasonable expectations fuel unreasonable emotions. Unreasonable emotions fuels irrational behavior. And then we look at certain services like the Veterans Administration, which, by the way, can do certain things better. But then there's this expectation that the VA is going to do everything when no system is really designed to do everything.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, sometimes, I'd hear vets talking about, oh, the VA has done this bad thing to me, but yet where else can I go?
Yeah.
Where else can I get what I'm getting? And it's almost like, it looks almost like it's bad, almost like an abusive marriage.
Yeah.
And now I do want to say, in my observation, I think a lot of folks in the VA, a lot of people in the VA have really good hearts and a lot of compassion and really do strive to do well for our vets. But it's in this massive system that seems to me to be underfunded, therefore it's understaffed, therefore everybody's overworked and burnt out.
Absolutely. And there aren't enough supports, both family, and I'm going to read your comment, Mo, in a minute. And by the way, I did drop the link. If anybody wants to come up and contribute to this conversation, or even ask just a question you would want to ask your parents, or contribute to the conversation, just a safe space for you to talk, get up, you're more than welcome to come up. But that's part of the problem, is when you pull people with fractured family structures and then you put them into a system that is likened to that of a family, and then after a certain time where either the military breaks you or you've decided that you've had enough, or here's another thing, you've created this family because the military is good at causing you to believe that I can handle this family, I'm qualified for this family. Why? Because, and you don't have to be camera friendly, as long as we can hear your voice, just like Jen. You see, she just came on stage. We don't see her face, but we hear her voice. That's totally fine. But when you look at it, right, you got your basic allowance for housing paid for, so the military is paying your housing, right, if you're living off base. They're paying for your food. They're paying for everything else because you're really not making a lot of money. And then you get this family without any analysis as to what family you have back home, what systems you have back home, what supports you have back home. And then you leave the military exchanging one Maslow's blanket for another. Family, trauma bonding. And then you get out here and think that you can sustain that because of the military, and then you find out different. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And then on top of that, if I can say this
sure
accurately, it's like you're discharged and the military is taking you and they separate vets from their humanity so they can do inhumane things to those who they've demonized. And then there's a failure to reintegrate the vet in their humanity. And so in some ways you don't even come out the same person because of the trauma you've been through and the things you've been commanded to do and things you've seen or experienced.
Sure.
Military also reprograms you to take orders where then they throw you back into society where there's a whole different level of organization and orientation. So you really you grow up with your family and whatever trauma, then go into whatever branch of service, then you're reprogrammed, you're restructured, you have all of this organization, you wake up at this time, you do this, you do that. Everything is timed and told. You do your job, you do what you're told, you do it to the letter, and then all of a sudden you're on your own again. And you're expected to know and to transition on your own.
Mm.
It's the same structure of any trauma. It's you're expected to deal with it on your own and process it on your own, because who else is going to know how to deal with it? The military doesn't want to deal with it. You're not their problem anymore. You did your time. You did your service. You only signed up for 4 years. They're only required to take care of you for 4 years. Just like your parents. We're only required to take care of you for 18 years.
I like what Mo said. Mo said, and you are correct, Jen. It is, and I have a family member that is a veteran and works with thresholds. And services for veterans isn't where it needs to be, in my opinion. The number of homeless veterans that can't even qualify for a HUD, VASH, or VA is mind-blowing. Mr. Chicken Snatcher said, my dad let shame ruin his life and ultimately his pride, caused my parents to split and caused all kinds of problems. Why couldn't you just acknowledge your fault and ask for forgiveness? Ooh, that's a good question. That's a good question. You know, have you ever bothered to ask your dad what was he ashamed of? And you said he ultimately let his pride cause the parents to split and caused all kinds of problems. Why couldn't you acknowledge your fault and ask for forgiveness? I would like to know if you even know Mr. Chicken Snatcher, which I love the YouTube name, by the way. It gets me every time. Like all of a sudden, what if your dad was a chicken? No. I would like to know, we as children, we look at the pain. We feel the pain. We feel it, and there is a narrative that we are told, and depends upon who we are told this narrative by, we take it as the truth. When it could have been this person's perception of that truth or that thing. And without you understanding, I'm not saying you don't, I don't know. But have you bothered to get the other side of the story? Because this is a similar situation that we just got through talking about last night, where a mother told her daughter one thing, father said some other stuff in relation to the pain. Father leaves. Daughter grows up and finds out that the father, your mom and dad, created you as the result of an affair. And she didn't find out from either mom or dad. And so in trying to give her perspective last night, hopefully she comes back on, and trying to give her perspective regarding that, she was able to, eyes open, ears open. It makes sense. Now I can approach it differently and not excuse my dad's behavior, but give him a level of understanding for his trauma. And that's one of the things that us children of trauma, and I'll land this and leave it to our esteemed, guest to provide context on this and definite, information that we can all learn from. I think that we who are the swimmers in the trauma, for the lack of better words, we're swimming in it. We're receiving the pain. We don't have ears and eyes for the problem because we haven't been exposed to it. Exposure comes before comprehension. We haven't even been told the truth, or a version of that, which could be the truth, or even a manufactured lie, for us to try to discern and to make sense of it all. We're told a narrative, and depending upon why we were created, the parent wants us to obey them. What parent would knowingly tell a child something that could hurt them and cause them to disobey? That would make your parenting job harder. What do you think, Kelly?
Well, yeah, I think you said that well. And I think I've heard you say before, most folks do the best they can at the time with what they're given.
A version of that.
Yeah.
I say, and I want to let you keep going. I don't say you did the best you could. I think that that's a slap to the face of the child, especially if this child is an adult who stuffed and, like you said, repressed. They stuffed all that trauma. And then you say, look, I did the best I could. That could be the trigger that could cause a huge explosion in that kid who's an adult. But what I say is, you didn't do the best you could. You did what you knew. And I think that is an easier way of, and if you're a parent watching this, if you're a person who's dealing with trauma, right? Or even if you're an adult child, don't get offended, right? Meaning no harm, but you're an adult, but you have child situations that are still locked within you, because behind every angry adult is a child that has not been addressed.
Yeah. And, like a lot of us, I grew up in a chaotic household. My dad was a cop. My parents split up when I was young. Dad had horrible temper, a lot of anger issues. And what I learned as an adult was that when Dad was 8 years old, his father was killed on a car wreck after arguing with his wife, my grandmother, because he was going to see his mistress. And that's the legacy my dad grew up in. And the reason I bring that up is not because I don't want, I ain't trying to bring attention to me or my family, but it's like what you talk about, generational and learning and what we know. And so that was environment and legacy that my dad grew up in. So, so my dad wasn't perfect, and we've had this complicated relationship. He's crossed on and gone over now, but once I understood that, it helped me understand him a little better and helped me get to a place of forgiveness. And maybe acceptance.
In certain cases, I could see that.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that's the path for everybody. I'm not saying that prescriptive is this is for everybody. This is just my experience. Mm-hmm. And I just share it to say, because, let folks know I come from some trauma and some background. And so there's a lot of stuff that I've worked through as an adult that's really been those childhood issues. Mm-hmm. And, often if we grow up as in a very explosive or chaotic household, we're often always reading the house to see when the next explosion is going to occur, to see what we can do to prevent it. My brother's getting ready to tick Dad off. So let me stop him, because I know what happens when that's going to occur. And then as an adult, we grow up like always reading the room, always like trying to we're always this empath, seeing what's going on, trying to keep everybody else happy, because that's what we learned as a child, to keep our world safe. And then we grow up as an adult, not really knowing ourselves or what we want, but continuing. And then we kind of get in these relationships, often, whether they're friendships or whether they're romantic, replicating that situation because it's just what we know.
Let me ask you this. When people use the word compromise, is that a level of, now don't get me wrong, in certain cases, context depending, compromise makes sense. But when it comes down to even relationships, when you use the word compromise, you said something that was very powerful, that because you're trying to avoid the next explosion, you're reading the room and trying to be this empath to make someone else feel happy. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah.
And in doing that, you grow up and then you develop a sense of, I have to compromise in this relationship, which in essence, the more I begin to talk to people, especially in anger management situations, right? I end up learning that when I sit them down, go through the anger management assessment, all that great stuff, anger management education, great. Okay, all that strategic stuff. Now talk to me about you. What do you like? Right? And then I begin to bring them outside the context of a relationship and look at it into, oh my God, Laura, you are so correct. That's not a compromise. That's avoiding conflict. Absolutely. And I say that everything else you have done for your life thus far up to that relationship has been selfish. And we have been taught in certain cases to demonize being selfish. And I think there are two roads in this. One being only selfish. We don't want you to be only selfish, because then you're not exercising due care. You're not exercising due caution. It's just you and no one else matters but you. That is wrong. But everything else you have done in your life is selfish, from the type of food you like to eat, to the type of clothes you wear, to the temperature of the water that you conduct personal hygiene in, to everything else that you do, the chairs you sit in, the type of phone that you have, provided you have
Constant appeasement.
You say what again?
It's constant appeasement.
Yes.
It's not a matter of compromise where you each are getting what you want. You are sacrificing your needs and your desires in order to keep the conflict from rising to a level that you can't handle. It's appeasement.
And where did you likely learn it from?
Home.
Trauma.
Yeah.
Trauma.
Because the minute you said, and I'll end with this, and I know I keep saying I'm long-winded.
No, you're good. You're good.
The minute that you tell your parent or parents how you feel, and they blow up, you now learned that lying became important because I had to massage my parents' ego because they couldn't take how I felt. They couldn't take what I saw to be the truth. I wasn't allowed to express my feelings without worrying about how your ego could handle them.
Let me ask you this, Mike. In your experience with anger management, working with folks and with couples, would you think it's fair to say one person often suppresses their desires to keep the peace, but it's unconsciously or subconsciously a transaction? If I do this, then you do this. I'll be nice, you be nice to me. I'll be nice to you, you be nice to me. And as long as that works, everybody's kind of okay. Nobody's rocking the boat, so to speak. But then usually the one who's in that position of constantly repressing starts to resent.
Yes.
And then the explosion occurs.
Yes. But in certain houses, the explosion occurs when they feel they have the ability to exercise power because the anger takes over and it's no more logic anymore. It's no more what I'm afraid of you. It's become too much. When you look at the snaps, right? Or even when you look at taking it in a different perspective, in a different road or a different pathway where cheating becomes a thing, where this woman has a work husband and he allows her to express herself and she feels free. And then it's that attachment. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? It manifests itself in different ways.
Yeah.
Different ways. And I think that when people are not realistic about their expectations, and it's kind of hard for you to be realistic about your expectations when you've been living in a state of repression or a state of, constant, I have to finesse the ego of my parents. And, especially if you might go to a school where you can't, the teacher's always lying and then the parent believes the teacher. So like, no matter where you go, school, home, it's always the focus of you negatively. I say that children become the psychological and therapeutic lab rats for bad parenting. Mm. You think about it.
Oh, yeah.
Drug them up. They're too active. They're supposed to be active. They're kids. What did you expect? Yeah. Just because you're overweight and understandably not judging you, but let's just talk facts as they are. If you're overweight, you can't handle an active kid. And I'm not saying everybody should go on a Jenny Craig or a Atkins diet, but let's just talk facts as they are, right? So don't get mad at the kid for being active and put him on medicine because you can't run faster than them. Find someone who's their speed. You see what I'm saying? It's other ways to do it. Reach out, ask for help, but don't punish the kid. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does. And that's one of the things I loved about your that parenting or relational credit score that you presented last week.
Oh my God. Yes.
Because I mean, that's asking questions most of us ain't thought about when we're 20, 25 years old.
Yes. Yes. And yeah, speaking of which, I got to get that over to my my book developer, or formatter, so she can get that squared away so we can get that out. And all of my books are only $5. You can go to MikeBrownsBooks.com. I got one called The Trouble Analysis, right? If it's transactional, reciprocal, beneficial, logical, emotional, and coupled with the family credit report, you take these two things, go see a divorce attorney or family law attorney, that's what they're called, or go see a therapist or an anger management specialist, someone who, we never think about retaining the services of a divorce attorney before we get married. We never think about going to see not just one therapist, but I often say 2 or 3, because here's the thing. Sometimes there are therapists who have not healed from their own trauma, and they take you along their ride and yours too. You get no solutions. You get no solutions. In fact, they will drive you towards a worse end than where you started, because the money isn't in the cure, the money is in the medicine. And
Come on now.
It's like, if you are not getting an end in sight, if you are not getting tangible results, if your therapist hasn't at least upset you on multiple occasions, not intentionally for the purpose of malice, but ask any real doctor, you can't have healing without pain.
It has to get worse before it gets better.
You have to heal it. I mean, you have to feel it to heal it.
And it's like, when I poke and I prod and I say some of the things that I say, I know I'm triggering you. I'm doing that purposefully, but not for malicious intentional reasons. I'm trying to get my words together, right? I'm doing that because I'm finding the source, and I'm telling you in a manner that other people who were getting something else out of you, they didn't tell you what you needed to know because they were getting something out of you. They had something. If I tell you this, I'll no longer be able to get that thing. That's why your family members won't tell you the truth, because they need you to watch their kids. Because Friday night they got you. So I'm saying they need something from you, so they're not going to tell you the truth. They're not going to teach you the skills that you need to know. Why are they not going to teach you the skills that they need you to know? Or that you need to know, because once you're independent, they can't use you anymore.
You know what you were saying earlier about selfishness, what selfishness like is like, if I'm going to do something for me, oh, wait, Kelly, you're selfish. I need you to do this for me. Well, wait a minute. Aren't you being selfish with my life?
Yes. And I think that there's an attorney on YouTube. His name is The Lead Attorney. If you get a chance, go over, like, follow, subscribe. Awesome advice. You very rarely will find an attorney who will tell you the truth about systems and processes that you haven't taken into consideration. But he said something. There was a veteran, a Marine, who had said, oftentimes what happens and what is relationship killers is when a person is selfish. And the lead attorney was like, nah, I tend to disagree. I think what happens is, if you have two selfish people who selfishly love to do a thing that the other person selfishly loves to receive, and you two get together because you love to receive what each other, loves to selfishly give. Those kinds of relationships last longer because they have high value.
Makes sense.
High value. Because if you fall in love and you expect love to be this thing that is going to be the solid foundation, there was I got to find it because I saved the quote from earlier today. And I know, yes, shouts out to Chris McNeil on Facebook. Happiness is an emotion that comes and goes like the waves in the ocean. Healthiness is a lifestyle that can make life worthwhile.
Mm. Mm.
And you got people who chase happy instead of healthy. The big question in anger management is when you're asking yourself and you're trying to calm down, because you want to stay in the evolved brain, the prefrontal cortex, if you will, the evolved brain where logic and reasoning resides. Hey, Chris is here. Didn't I tell you I was going to use it? I told you I was going to use it. I told you I was going to coach you. Ow! So you know I'm a person of my word. I told you. Here we go. What do I need right now to be okay and healthy in the long term?
Mm.
Not happy. Happy is, you be happy 1 minute and sad the next, and both are okay. It's okay to feel down, just don't stay there. But healthy. Chris. Shouts out to Chris McNeil. I'm gonna read it one more time, and then I yield to Kelly and Jen. Happiness is an emotion that comes and goes like the waves in the ocean. Healthiness is a lifestyle that can make life worthwhile. Worthwhile doesn't mean perfect. Worthwhile doesn't mean you get your way. But there's a lot of things that worthwhile encompasses that can be very powerful. I land. Go ahead.
No, man, that's good. Yeah, and shouts out to Chris for that. And do you think that we are taught or even know at a young age or even through most of adulthood how to be emotionally healthy?
No.
Same, you know.
No.
And our culture doesn't teach that, and our culture doesn't put that in front of us as a goal.
Can you define it?
Say again?
It would be, would you be able to define it? It would be like defining perfection.
Yeah.
Are we talking about emotional stability?
That's
because
part of it.
here we go. When we're talking about a healthy lifestyle, I think we equate. First of all, let's go back. You can't be taught anything your parents haven't mastered.
True.
And the greatest people, in my opinion, who are imperfect vessels, who have the greatest impact on us in the shortest amount of time, are teachers.
Could it possibly be because they are the only figures in our lives who are the only ones who tell us they aren't the one, they don't know everything, and that knowledge is power? It's the only source where we get that thirst, where knowledge is power.
Correct.
It's the only location. It's
Yeah.
been taken away. Our public school system has completely annihilated that structure.
Well, that's one aspect of the conversation. That in terms of talking about where the public system school system has gone, that is another conversation that we could definitely have. But let's just talk about the teacher. Because I think that there is something that we could
The
learn
lovely, lovely teachers.
You said what again?
The lovely, lovely teachers. I love teachers.
Well, here's this too. One, they are imperfect. We know that, right? But the one thing that makes the teacher and the parent different is time. Parents think they got forever. Parents think they got forever. They think they have forever. But the teacher knows they don't have forever. The teacher knows I only have 45 minutes with you. And so in order to maximize this 45 minutes, minus 15, depending upon my class for classroom management, right? I've got to plan my lesson. When parents sit there and say, there is no manual for parenting, just say you don't read, because that's not true. There are studies that talk about parenting, right? There are things, that's why other people are able to tell you what your child is going to likely do, even though you're the one who believes, no, you don't know my child. No, you think your child is different. Your child is not different. Your child has the same characteristics of people that are in this subset. Now, this is not considering those who have devious intentions for your children, who will talk you into putting them on medicine, talk you into having you do things and approve of things that will have negative consequences to their ends. We're not talking about those kind. We're talking about teachers who will sit there and say, look, I know each one of these students and how they learn. I know how people learn. And I know that this is what I need to know. And I have to craft the lesson plan using the various styles of learning, the various learning environments. And I have to be creative and inspire them to want to learn, because kids are naturally curious, right? And it is said, and I'll end with this because I would love to hear your opinion. It is said that in 1 year, a child will spend 900 hours in school, but will spend in that same year 7,800 hours approximates at home. So why is it that the teachers in school, regardless of the other curricula that we may not agree with, but the theory is that they are more effective at getting our children to professional outcomes that make them qualified for the workforce. But we who have more time complain there is no time. But parents think that they have a lot of time. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, check me. I could be wrong. I don't know.
No, and I think, one of the things that immediately jumped out at me when we talk about teachers versus parenting, a teacher's gone through 4 years of education.
Mm-hmm.
To be a teacher, to stand up there and do that.
Correct.
And as you have said, there ain't many qualifications to being really just one thing, to being a parent.
Mm-hmm.
And so many, all of us, we go into parenting not knowing what we're getting into, not expecting it. We've come from not from families where folks didn't know, folks who raised us didn't know. And we just repeat what we experienced often.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we lost Jen. And then,
come back in that. I hope so. Keep going.
So you've got somebody who's skilled and prepared versus somebody who at no fault of their own usually hasn't been prepared, who hasn't trained to be a parent.
So here's this. The teacher wants to be a teacher. How many parents are willing to admit that they don't even like parenting?
Oh,
Jen is back. Yeah, I knew she wasn't walking out all the way. Things happen, right? How many parents, the teacher wanted to put themselves through the 4 years of education and the constant years of education and the passion behind what they do, right? How many parents are willing to admit they don't even like parenting? And I developed, Kelly, I'm going with this again. I developed another type of quiz, if you will, to ask parents certain questions, then to get to the end that will reveal, because I'm sure you've given people questionnaires and in asking them questions, things of that nature, then all of a sudden you spring a question on them they didn't expect, and you're waiting for that constant continuous flow, and all of a sudden they don't give you that. They don't give you that flow, such as think I'm trying to find it. I had it here. It was something. What type of clothes do you like? What type of shoes do you like? What type of movies do you like? What type of cars do you like? What type of teacher do you like? What type of supervisor do you like? Yeah. What type of parenting do you like? You see where it's going, right? When you get to all this materialism, oh my God, I like this kind of shoes. I like this kind of, it's when we do, interrogations, it's like baseline questions, things you automatically know the answer to. You could look at a person and see, you're like, Fendi bags. What kind of bags do you like? Fendi. I knew it. I saw it right there. And it shot off quick. Next thing you know, what kind of parenting do you like? What do you mean parenting? Because if you were the type of person who liked parenting and studied it, because there are plenty of parenting courses that are out here, right? Well, what type of parenting? Oh my God, I like authoritative parenting. Let me tell you why. It is a healthy mix of establishing certain discipline, right? And by discipline, I don't mean punishment. I mean teaching. But it allows them the freedom to be the little humans they are, the freedom to express. And when they fail, it's not met with punishment, it's met with lessons. Lessons, because they don't know they're insecure by their very nature. And I know that as a parent, I may not have taught them everything. So what do? I keep a journal. When I teach my children, what my parents teach me, I teach them a lesson. We journal about it. We exchange it. We have a conversation from it. And then I sign it. They sign it. We do it every day. Why? I tell my children to keep me accountable for what I teach you. Why? Real teachers are held accountable for the outcomes of their students. This is why they must have lesson plans. This is why they must. Why? Because that area superintendent, that department chair, I used to be an adjunct professor. I had to come with my syllabi, right? I had to come with my lesson plans. If I had a student who failed and I had so many, I had to come and defend why that was the outcome. What if anything took place? We are held accountable for the outcomes of our students, but parents, unfortunately, unless you are in a culture where they have that in place, parents, for the most part, are beholden to no one. And if parents are beholden to no one, you take credit for your child when your child walks across the stage. That's my baby. I did that. Take their 8th grade diploma, high school diploma, college degree. They don't even get to keep the original. They got to get a copy. Put it on your wall as though you did it. But do you take that prison minimus when they get committed to the State Department of Corrections because they committed a certain action that was fueled by the childhood trauma? Do you take that and put that on the wall too?
Wow.
And I'm saying this because I want those who are watching this or will watch this to separate your ego from your parenting style. I will still say you have the greatest of intentions, but the skills may be deficient, and those two can both be true.
Yeah.
You can have a lot of value, but you could be doing a disservice to your child, and by not healing, doing a disservice to the child in the adult that still longs for your wisdom, still longs for your instruction, still longs to hear about your trauma, because that's the greatest lesson they never got. I land. What are your thoughts?
I like that, and I think that's got a lot of depth and a lot of wisdom in it, and I think it goes back to like it, the old saying, it takes a village to raise a child, because it's part of the village is holding the parents accountable. How many parents wouldn't do something when the grandparents is around?
That's why I'm okay, because my grandmother protected me from my mom. Now, my grandmother could have been the reason why my mom had the trauma. But my grandmother knew, hey, I can't let her do that to him. because I did it to her. That's crazy, but that's a real thing. Go ahead.
And that's got a lot of depth to it, Mike. But I think that level of like nuanced thinking and maybe critical thinking comes into play as people age and they age into being parents and aging into the role of grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
This is a little off subject, but I'd love to hear you. And if you don't answer it now, that's cool. But I'd love to hear you say sometime why you got started doing children's books. And maybe you shared it and I just missed it. But
thank you.
I saw, man, you lit up. You just lit up.
Saw me come to light, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
Look. So the reason, matter of fact, we're gonna put the children's book website on the screen because I want to explain the tool that is in each one, and I think it would be important to do that. Yep. So it's not enough to just say we need to break generational curses. That is a statement that I've heard said over and over, and I'm gonna say over and over again, because it is said over and over again. But the one thing that I wanted to do is create tools, because there are parents who do want to do the work, but they just don't have the tools. Now, when I could have, I'm smart enough to pencil a novel and then have a developmental and content editor edit it, because my editors have helped me make wonders of my books. They haven't robbed me of the content, but they've tweaked it in certain areas to give it the punch it needs to have. And so in doing that, parents need tools. Can you all see this on the screen?
Yep.
All right. So when you look at these books, what I tell myself first was the first book that I wrote. And I'm blessed to say it's won a lot of awards. So in what I tell myself first, when you think about I must love me first, I must be selfish before I am selfless. I'm no good to anyone else unless I'm good to myself first. I must do for myself first. I must protect myself first. My body is what it is: skinny, fat, short, with a hat, tall, small, basketball. I like me. Not everyone will like me. That's okay. I like me. I believed that I looked at a lot of affirmation books that are out there, but there are a lot of affirmation books that gas the children up with unrealistic expectations. Unrealistic expectations, such as everyone is my friend. Oh no, that's not true. And we learned this from daycare. A person is either your friend or not your friend. And when we talk about anger management, all or nothing thinking, black or white thinking, often attributes to anger problems, because as an adult, there's a lot of gray. Yeah. There's associate, friendly associate, friend, best friend. There's levels to this. And so I decided that in creating children's books that address these things, if we help rewire a person's thinking through constant reading over and over and over again. I have my daughters doing this every morning when I go pick them up. Exposure comes before comprehension. Exposure comes before comprehension. And they need to know this stuff. And so I based it on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So that was the first book. I'm going to answer your question in a minute, Chris. Then we get to what I tell myself about self-protection. And then if you see right here, it's small, but it says domestic violence prevention. Look, it's easy to go to the domestic violence system in certain cases and think that they are going to help you. But what some people don't understand is, and I'm going to offend some people when I say this, PJ, I'm letting you up when I see your stuff connects all the way. Trust me. And anybody, I'm going to drop this link again so that you all can come up if you want to, right? The domestic violence system a great percentage of these agencies are not for profit, but the people that work for them make a salary, some type of money, right? And so because they get the funding from government agencies work on how many people have you served. And so I'm not going to make this allegation of every agency, but of the ones that I have seen. If it looks to be that this person who is alleging that they are a victim of domestic violence, if it looks to be that they are not truly a victim, it is not in the nonprofits agency's best interest to turn you away, because that's turning money away. At the end of the year, we got to be able to justify the numbers. And as long as you look the part, you are the victim. And that does a disservice to people who are being lied on, because there has to be a check and balance somewhere to make sure that real victims are getting the services, and those who are faking victim aren't robbing or are not robbing these agencies of the money they need to help real victims. And so my way of kind of interceding in between that was to sit here and create a book that teaches a person how to protect themselves, because that is the one thing these agencies do not do. They will not teach you how to protect yourself. They won't even teach you Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They won't even teach you where you might be a contributor to your own problem. They will just give you money, because it's not their money, it's the government's money they've given to them. And then they will shift you to a different zip code where you will face the same problem again. Because you will pick a person who has that same problem, because you're trauma bonding. Does this make sense, Kelly and Jen?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I love you filling in the gaps.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. Now, What I Tell Myself About Talent, that's a fun book, right? What I tell myself about talent is helping children understand their talents. A lot of kids grow up not knowing what they even want to do. And so if we help them understand their talents by the things that they do every day in their everyday play, we can help them find or kind of guide them towards a path of their passions becoming a profession. Does that make sense?
Yeah, which is really needed, because we're often just taught whatever the school teaches us.
Absolutely.
Or what we see.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was going to say what we see somebody else doing, our parents, or maybe some other relatives, you know.
Mm-hmm.
If they're doing that, they're getting accolades, or their life looks good, then I need to pursue that.
True. Mommy, Daddy, Please Teach Me is a book that is speaking from the perspective of a child to the reader, usually a parent. So all of my books serve as Trojan horses, right? Whether or not, if I put this stuff in an adult book, people would be like, well, who are you that I should read that? Right? But then if I put it in a children's book, it's simple information for you to be able to read to your child, and you're actually reading to yourself while you're reading to your child. You're getting the medicine that you might not have gotten when you were younger. And so Mommy, Daddy, Please Teach Me, as you can see, it's won awards, right? You gave me life, so I am here for who knows how many years. You give me love by what you do. Protect, clean, and feed me too. You played with me and watched me crawl. Now I walk, I'm standing tall. More alert, I look to thee. Mommy, Daddy, please teach me. Don't just clothe me, teach me how to dress myself from years from now. A family I'll have someday. You know, it's a family, or boys and girls, ties and pearls, comb their hair, cut it too, maybe a dress. What size of shoes? How do I know what to choose? Teach me how so I don't lose. Does that make sense?
Wow, yeah.
If you don't give these children skills, that is the void that is left in them, to the point where they have no choice but to lean unto that mother, especially if you're a boy. And so now the mother already had to bring the child into the world, which was laborious enough. Now she's got to cook, clean, and do all this stuff too. You mean to tell me you can't take not one or two of those things away from her to ease the pressure? It's a partnership in this, but you can't expect him to do what is his responsibility to do if he has never been taught and able to respond with ability. That's where responsibility comes in.
Yeah.
And it starts at home. So there's a lot of stories on here. I'm gonna give you the short Cliff Notes version because all of them got, and we'll be all day on this. So here we go. Impatient Patience, a fun story about a wonderful 8-year-old girl named Patience who is really fast. She got flipped off her bike, her leg in a cast, and she became a patient. Her mom been telling her to slow down all this time. She hadn't listened, so she had to learn it by becoming a patient, right? What I tell myself about no, kids don't like rejection. And when they don't like rejection, they don't like that word no, but no could save them from danger they don't see. But I'm writing another book about what I may not call it that. I may call it the other side of no. Here's the reason for the other side of no. If we don't allow children to say no and establish boundaries that they can enforce, have honored, and we protect their ability to establish boundaries, they become adults who don't know about boundaries because they hadn't had any practice when they were younger. And in our households, we can't say no to our mama. I don't know if you can say no to your daddy, but you can't say no. You can't say no. No closed doors, no nothing. And if we say no, it's met with harsh punishment. Here we go. My Black Life Matters. I'm going to tell you the trick about this one. People see My Black Life Matters and people think that it's about the Black Lives Matter movement. Nope, that's not what it's about. Actually, what it's about is all the traumas that Black kids experience in our community, and they formed a group among the kids called My Black Life Matters, where they try to protect each other until the adults listen.
Wow.
Here we go. But if you look at the cover, you would buy it just on the strength of you thinking it's about the Black Lives Matter movement. And that's the Trojan horse. When you look inside, it's nothing like that at all.
Well, and and I love that whole Trojan horse concept because, we as adults, as soon as we know somebody's trying to teach us something, we build up these defenses. So we already have the story and the defense planned.
Yep.
And, and you're just circumventing all that.
Absolutely. So unconditionally conditional, how they love me, how they love each other, how they love others. The way that parents love each other is based on a system of condition. Now, they may lie to themselves and say, I love you unconditionally. That is not realistic at all. It is based on a system of condition. But the way the parents love the children is based on a system of unconditional love. And the children need to know that these two roads should not intersect. And so that's where that comes in. And of course, there could be some religious aspects where there's different agreements and disagreements. I understand. I Believe in You, Just Not That is a book that tends to, where the parents tend to help the children find their talents. And it is a hilarious conversation. If you are a grammar person, you might want to read this book with caution because I wrote it like how kids text. So there's a lot of exaggerations that put a lot of emphasis on, the way that people text. And so it's a relatable book. I've got nothing but great reviews on it. Stay on Track. As you can see on my background, I used to like what? And I still do. Trains. I love trains. I wanted to be a CTA operator when I was younger. I just love trains. And so I use this to teach kids about staying on track and not getting off their goals. So the story is, this is Eddie the engineer and Oscar. Oscar is another engineer, and this is Travis the train. Well, Eddie is so busy looking at Oscar because Oscar's been Employee of the Year. He likes the way he runs his trains. And then all of a sudden it causes Travis to miss the turn. and now they got to go all the way around because they missed their stop. He had been so focused on the accomplishments of another person, he had forgotten the reason why he had even done the things that and these are things that we do as adults. People in the same career field, we are so busy focusing on them. Their stops are not ours. Their destination is not ours, or maybe not. But don't forget the reason why you're doing this. See it, take notes, be inspired, congratulate. Remember why you're doing it. You know? All life lessons I wish we learned early. How about now is about a traffic stop that occurs where Jerome wants to be a cop. His father says, you don't want to be that because the cop's going to kill you. They get pulled over because he runs the stop sign by being on his phone. Cops approach the car. He automatically calls the cops a racist. They're appalled. Like, wait a minute. Racist what? A kid just got killed at this intersection. That's why we're telling you to stop. And so now Jerome is confronted with information. Is that his name, Jerome? I forgot his name. But anyway, he's confronted with a question by his dad, like, I thought you said they was going to kill us. And his dad never answers the question. Yeah. So what do you do with that, right? Whose fault, not mine. It's inherent what this is about in the title. Accepting responsibility. I had fun writing this. Oh my God. It was so much fun. Mike the Tiger's with his friends, Penny and Miles. They try to go hunting. Mike can never seem to get it right. And then here's this. Oh, I love this. The beauty of this book is absolutely amazing because, and I just got it made into a coloring and activity book too. So it's even more important and drives the lesson home. Not only do they talk to Mike about it being his fault, but they teach him how to stalk, teach him how to hunt. They go through the extra steps of teaching him, and then Mike finally gets it right. You want to talk about, they didn't beat him up. They're all hungry. They didn't beat him up. They just talked to him and taught him. It's a wonderful lesson. It's a wonderful lesson. Birthday, impatient special day. This book tends to, so Patience turns 9. Again, she's impatient. And this one is on the importance of family. But I felt it very important to not just leave Patience's father out of it. In the first Impatient Patience, it was just her mom, her sister, her adult sister, and Patience. In this book, the adult sister who's married and gone with her husband, you see Dad comes into the picture. Dad is the commander of the USS Gumshoe, right? And so it's a guided missile destroyer, DDG-63. And so I put that in there. That's why I wish I would have somebody from the Navy see it like, oh my God, we'll support it. But it's a guided missile destroyer. So Impatient Patience, it's her birthday the next day. It's so many lessons that this book is packed with because Patience can't wait till she's an adult and she can do what she want to do. And her mom is like, no, enjoy your years. Be a kid, play, have fun, things like that. And then her dad is like, I heard you broke your leg. Slow down, enjoy your years. You know, it's just packed with wonderful lessons that I wish we learned growing up. And then when you see it at the end, happy birthday, it's a whole double spread of her family. And that is what I really drive the emphasis on, that family really matters. They said they never, let me see, I'm kind of almost, to the end. They said they never, no matter how many times parents say they will never beat their child, they will never hurt their child, they will never do this, they will never do that. If you don't learn your traumas, you will do it again. You just may wear different clothes. You may work a different job. You may own different money. I mean, you may earn different money, but that's work. When it comes to home, you're going to repeat it again. And we don't want you to. And so this book, they said they never, these birds, a robin and a cardinal. This bird is the friend of a child. The bird is the only one who listens to the child. And the bird can't communicate with the child because they're two different species. They don't speak the same language. But for some reason, the bird understands the child and the child doesn't understand the bird, but the bird makes sure that he flies. This bird, in fact, grew up with the child and then flew away. And he makes it his mission to come back and talk to the child because it's someone that the child can vent to. And it's the bird ends up talking to the cardinal, giving a very important lesson that no matter what you say you'll do different, if you aren't taught different, you won't do different, so your kids can live different. So until then, it's they said they never.
Wow.
Yeah. And then lastly, because the rest of these books are in Spanish, which is very important. There's a heavy market in that area for these books. But the Steve the Bee and Little Frankie combines two books. So Little Frankie was supposed to be Little Frankie Feeling, a book by itself. But it was supposed to be a child's board book that just never came to fruition, but it did come to fruition in Steve the Bee. So Steve the Bee is a bee that advocates for children, right? Abused children. Steve the Bee is at this park and he notices that there are kids who play, but then there are kids who also get beat and hit by their parents. And so Steve the Bee actually teaches the reader about the acronym. He turns what he is, B, into an acronym: behavior, emotion, event. And so in that, I also put a QR code that has me explaining this acronym so that you can turn it into an activity to not only learn yourself, but to teach a child. And it even explains what an acronym is. It incorporates music. B for behavior can come from emotion built up inside when left unheard or unspoken. E for emotion, unheard or unspoken, builds up over time, if not managed in time. E for event means something that has happened. Ask how do you feel, then ask the child what happened. Instead of you beating this kid, walk it back. Behavior, emotion, event. Because parents who don't understand this immediately beeline towards consequence. When you don't understand that the behavior is because of an emotion, hey, just take a pause for a minute. How do you feel? And then I feel sad. Well, what has you sad? Don't ask why. If you ask the word why to a child in trauma or a child in pain, why triggers defensive mechanisms. But if you ask them what happens, it becomes a methodical process where they can outline what had them feeling this way.
Wow, Mike, man, what wonderful resources for parents.
And I wish they found value in it. And I'm trying. Oh my God, I'm trying so hard. And then it's like, even the books in Spanish are great. The collector's edition, I even have it in an audio book that has the majority of these books. And it's on Amazon, only like $4. I make my stuff extremely affordable. So on the What I Tell Myself First Coloring and Activity book, you need activities to instill these principles, right? Mommy, daddy, please teach me coloring and activity book. Okay, teach me. I got 4 recipe sections where you can write down the recipes, draw a picture, and then help your children actually have 4 recipes they know how to cook ad nauseum without thinking about it. Unconscious competence. Teaching boys about girl sizes because your son may be a father who needs to know these things. Teaching them about healthy work-life balance, vacation planning. We want children to understand what it is that we do, but we don't have them interview us so they can write down like they are an employer.
Wow.
Who has time to whoop children when there's so much stuff to teach them? And
And
these,
especially if a parent's like working 2 or 3 jobs, just trying to get some food on the table and all that.
yes. So that means you have to have resources to make good on the little time you have. That's where these lesson plans come in. What my parents teach me daily, what I teach my children daily, right? Inside of it, each one of these things, and all of these books are $5 each. I don't make them expensive. If all you did was each one of these journals last 30 days, and every day you have a lesson, and then once you teach that lesson, you ask them to go on ahead and write down what they thought about the lesson, what did they learn from it, right? Each day. See, discipline comes when you start doing big things with little steps. Little steps. If we can just start by creating a habit of doing little things, they will get used to you teaching them. They will want to listen to you because every day you're spending quality time. Quality time is not how long, that's quantity time, Lord, use me. That's quality time. Quantity time is how long. Quality is what you do within the time you got with them and how rich it is. It's like a Keurig cup or like a Tide Pod. Don't eat those Tide Pods. Don't do it. Don't do it. But it's quality time. And so within this time, hey kids, come on around. Let's go ahead and open up this book. Let's talk about this. And then have fun while you're reading it. Oh, and I got a question. Bam, bam, bam. And oh my God, you'll lose track of time. You'll lose track of time. And then all of a sudden they break out their journals and they go to what my parents taught me. Oh my God, they got so much to write down. And then what I teach my children, because as a teacher, you need to reflect on what you taught your kids and how they were. And oh my God, I love how this child was smiling, but how this one, they were smiling, but they had a lot of questions. And this person was hands-on, so they needed a hands-on example. This person was visual, so their eyeballs were moving and following. You need to pay attention to those small things that your child is doing. And then they swap the journal, you swap the journal, and you read what they wrote. So you see that their feelings and their expression matters. You can also check for penmanship. You can check for syntax and flow. You can check for things and help them correct those things, reinforcing what the teacher has taught them. Then they sign it, you sign it, and you continue those small habits daily. So when they get the nerve to say, I don't know what you telling me, mama and daddy, but you never taught me nothing, guess what you can do? Go right to all these journals over all these years. And when you say, what you say, I didn't teach you anything, you signed it on this day. You signed it on this day. You signed it on this day. We talked about respect at least 379 times. We talked about love at least 455 times. That is your value. That is how you are able to show yourself worthy and well qualified to say, I have done my job.
Man, what you're doing is you're creating tools to empower parents. And how many parents feel overwhelmed and don't know what to do, where to turn, don't feel like I can afford this, don't know who to ask because this person says this, and I flip the channel, and this person says this, and this person says this. And then they just give up.
Yes.
Because they don't know what to do or the right thing to do, but they want to do something. And then that creates that cycle of guilt, shame, frustration, lie, fake it till you make it.
Yes.
And you can for $5, you can empower a parent that's changing lives. You're giving that parent self-worth. You're giving that parent esteem. You're giving that parent value and confidence, which then they can then convey to the child.
And I even got some other books too, right? We're not going to talk about the stuck in, that's another book. That's an adult book. And I'm going to tell you why I've stayed in the children's book market. Because when you're dealing with anger, see, I stayed in my subject matter profession where I have a level of expertise, quotations, in this.
Right.
When you're dealing with somebody who's angry, You can't put complexity in front of them because they're not in the evolved brain that will understand that. So you got to use pictures and simple words.
Right.
This is why I use my books on adults too.
I think they're all for adults.
Oh, they are. They are.
I mean, really. I mean, I don't know if you'll admit that, but
Oh, I
mean,
will.
that's what
Yeah,
it
they
seems
are.
to me.
Oh, I knew what I was doing. I knew what I was doing when I stuck to the
Ain't no doubt. Ain't no doubt about that.
Because there is an angry child in an unhealed adult. An angry adult, a frustrated adult is an unhealed child that had not been addressed. And I am not speaking to that adult. I am speaking to that unhealed child. When I look at why do grown-ups have babies, it starts out like this. Why do grown-ups have babies? It's like a meteorite and a crater. You get the reference. What I don't teach you now, life will teach you later. People talk choice and easily ignore that choices have motivators. So let's explore. Like biology, like some important jobs, no education is required. Just biology, proxemics, and be physically inspired. Oh my God. I had fun with this book. And it's like, look, when you think about it, right? We talk about all the good reasons that people are supposed to have babies. And then we go to all the traumatizing ones. Look, if your trauma is so much where you don't want to tell your kids, use my book and say, hey, I didn't say it. Mike said it, but let's talk about it. You have no reason not to talk to your children about all the negative reasons of why grown-ups have babies. Because some do have, there are some men who will impregnate that woman just to keep her for some unhealed reason. He thinks he needs her. He thinks, get her pregnant and she'll be mine forever. Will that be you? I surely hope never.
And vice versa. I mean, women will do that too.
Yes.
I mean, we've all been.
Yes. And you got to have these conversations because those conversations are going to be the conversations that if you pierce the mind, your job as a parent, take the parent away. Let's put that in a box for a minute. Your job as a teacher is not to teach them for right now. Your job is to teach them for when they will need it and you're not going to be around when they need that decision-making apparatus. When life shoves that pencil in their hand, they need to have a dot to connect. And if they don't have a dot to connect, it's not going to even matter.
And I love that they rhyme because it's easy to keep it. I mean, you done read half your books from memory right here.
I'm telling you. And the thing is that you don't have to take the blame. Blame it on me. Say Mike said. But let's talk about it. You can absolve yourself of this. I'm giving you an out. There is no reason for you not to teach your children.
Right. And I just want to be clear. We ain't beating up on any particular gender. That's just the way humans are humans.
Yes. Oh, my Lord. You are so correct. And moms, I'm sorry. If you thought I was beating up on you, I apologize. I'm not.
I don't think you were. I wanted to clarify my statement.
Sure.
Yeah. No, I don't think I didn't hear anything say that. I want to clarify my statement.
Yep. And I'm just saying, we are never attacking a person, though you may feel attacked. We are attacking the trauma. We are attacking the trauma that may still exist within you, the parent. I said it earlier, children are often the medical, psychological, and therapeutic, and even scholastic test rats for bad policies in parenting. You see, I added more to that.
Right. And I think, you're so right, because it's just not unprepared parents. It's also the culture and the context that we find ourselves in parenting or what happens to get us to that point, whether we meant to or not. whether we intend it or not. And, if we circle back around in a big loop, when we talked about earlier about emotional wholeness and health, we live in a culture where we're bombarded with advertisements that says, oh, you're not happy, buy this, and it will change your life.
Absolutely.
And I remember as a kid, believing that, seeing that, whatever on TV, and like getting it on Christmas, and 30 minutes, I'm like, this, this sucks, and being disappointed, feeling that let down.
True.
And not knowing why.
When you asked me about my books, you see I came to life. Look.
Well, yeah, no, you lit up, man, and I'm so glad you do, because I've not heard you say that. But can you share? Will you share like what like when you started, before you wrote the first book, what was in you, in your heart?
So I had a visceral dislike for my mom because of the trauma that she put me in. And I didn't understand her. And I became an anger management specialist, not for her, not for my own healing, but I became an anger management specialist because there are a lot of people that I was teaching who had to go through anger management court ordered. And I was like, I teach people about security. I teach people about conflict resolution. So anger management seems right up my alley. That was the best course that one of the best courses that I have ever taken, that began to open my eyes as to anger, its triggers, where it lives, expectations, unreasonable expectations, what fuels anger. And I was helping a client who wanted to do some bad things to a couple of people. And I helped them see that their present boyfriend and past boyfriends all had similar things that were causing them all to use her. And when you are in trauma, you can't see how a person is using you because you're latching onto them and getting your needs met.
Yeah.
And that is when it clicked to me that I could no longer be angry at my mom because my mother was being used and she was using us as a punching bag for her anger and frustration.
Wow.
I did not approve of the behavior, and I am a survivor of it. I would fight the belt, fight the broomstick, fight the extension cord. I would snatch it away from her. I would protect my brother and sister from that abuse. So I'm a survivor of it. But the healing had not come yet. That was the first stage. And in the introduction into my book, I give credit to my mom along with other people. And I said, Mommy, I finally get you now. But I said I love you, but I didn't say it like I loved you. I said it in a manner of reverence. The real healing came in 2022, where in March this year, where I was scrolling through my brother's Facebook page, who has also passed, and looking at him. He was a funny comedian. My God, hilarious. And scrolling through his page, I saw my mom put a post on his page. So I decided to take that trip. Oh my God. Because I hadn't seen my mom and I didn't even see her at the funeral because she had been cremated. I didn't see her when she coded because I didn't go to the hospital. I didn't care. I'm a former homicide detective. So when she passed, I was like, okay, whatever. I almost said, I'm on my way, like I'm still homicide. I'm like, I'm not on my way. I'm doing a concealed carry class. No stride broke at all. So I'm looking at her Facebook page and she was in the hospital. Oh, it was so wonderful to hear her voice. I almost forgot how her voice sounded. And to this day, I still have that video. And it was just so wonderful to hear her voice. And she was talking about taking care of your body. And she was against the thing that, I ain't gonna say it, you know it, the recent thing that people are for or against her.
Yeah.
Right. So that's not what did her though. But she was against it. And she, she sat there, and there was a post where there was a lady who was complaining about how hard it is to be a single mom. And my mother, you know how you get to write your thoughts on the post you share? I gotta find it. Because I want to read it verbatim. And I hope it's still in this phone. And I know it's in snapshots, so that's gonna help me get to it a lot faster.
Take your time, man. It's worth it.
Yeah. Oh, that's too soon. That's too soon. No.
Yeah, and while you're looking, I just want to acknowledge Jen's comment about
Sure.
the order and operation of how we take things, and that we experience things before we process the information. Yeah, that's good, Jen.
For sure. Jen, and I'm gonna be quiet and open it up to you because Jen is amazing. She has always provided awesome value to this page and these posts. And Jen, I just want you to know that you're treasured and that you definitely matter. Yeah, for real. I just wanted to tell you that.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you that.
Yeah, when you were talking about your books for the talking about Mommy and Daddy Teach Me,
Mm-hmm.
it's that reflection. Children learn to walk and run before they really understand what that means and the dangers that they now have to encounter and deal with. And as the adult, we forget, oh, they're running. They don't understand what that means. They have to learn. But it has to be that healthy balance of them learning on their own in that struggle, but also guiding them and protecting them.
Correct.
And the parent's ego gets so caught up in the nuance of society and their own, their own family structure and the pressures that come from it. And then the friend dynamic. And then, of course, you have the kids' friends, parents. Then you have the teachers, and you have doctors. You have so much pressure. So you think you have to be this item, this picture of perfection. And you put that pressure on your child and expect them to be perfect and to do exactly what you say. Well, they're running. All they know is they're having fun. You have to give them that information. And even as adults, we're evolving every single day. We're learning. We, as adults, something happens to us. Well, it happens. Then we process. It's the same effect. It's how you handle it. It's how you then respond. You take that information, that experience, and fear is one thing that education really I feel needs to be focused on, because it is a very effective tool. And there's not a lot of talk about it. There's a lot of use of it, but there's not a lot of talk.
Yeah, that's a really good point, I think, Jen. And Mike, you can speak to this, I think, really well, both as a vet and then also as a former police officer. It's like, the thing that I had to learn when I was overseas was like distinguishing between fear and actual threat.
Yes.
And I think, Jen, that's what you're speaking to, is like sometimes we're fearful of things that aren't an actual threat.
Exactly.
But they keep us bound. They keep us in captivity, so to speak, or in our box or in our lane.
Well, and our perception, back to what Mike was saying, is that, we learn from our environments. And so if our parental structure, we're learning that a certain situation is quote unquote dangerous, that's what we're going to learn and then take with us throughout life.
Yeah.
And if that's what you're basing your choices and decisions off of, it's going to skew things.
Which goes back to Mike's, teaching the Maslow hierarchy of needs.
Exactly.
I'm gonna find that old post. I'm gonna find
it. Yeah, no.
You're so frantic.
Y'all keep going. I gotta find it. I'm finding this.
Well, Jim, back to what you said a minute ago. You talked about when things happen, fearful things happen, or we experience them as adults. Do you think that life is often so busy we don't even have time to process it, or we don't make time to process it?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's because priorities are really out of whack. The pressure is on paying the bills, keeping a roof over your head and food in your belly. Okay, well, what about the family time?
Yeah.
What about that weekend off and that one day where you can put your feet up and let your ankles, not be swollen? What about actually utilizing your vacation days? What about actually being able to look at your paycheck and feel valued for the time that you put in? So.
Yeah. And, we've found ourselves since COVID, what many people term the great resignation. But I think it's really the great reevaluation. The resignation comes from reevaluating what's important. It's like, we can live on less money if we're buying less stuff. Or that's not everybody's the case. Some of us are really having to work a lot to, just to survive. But I think there's a lot of this that, people are like, oh yeah, my kids, I had to resign. And usually the wife, the mother, had to resign from her job to teach the kids during COVID. And then I think a lot realize like, oh, my kids really do better. And this is better for me as a parent to do in this role. So I'm not returning to work.
Exactly.
And we're going to cut some corners and we're going to try our best to make it.
Well, it gave a split second of an opportunity for people to be able to stop, assess, and actually be able to make a good decision for themselves, because the world essentially stopped for a second. And it gave people an opportunity, and those who took it really took it, and it really opened their eyes and they took a different direction.
That's a good way to put it. I think that's a really accurate description.
Well, I'm gonna have to dig deep. It's probably somewhere in the cloud. I got so many photos, but
Mike, if you find it, put it on your community tab. That way you can put it out there and you can get it out and not have it nag you and then lose it again and not be able to find it again.
Oh, no, it's definitely not nagging me. But, it was words to the effect of, if you are so concerned with how you feel as a single parent, think about how that child would feel by you putting your traumas on them. That child doesn't deserve to go through your trauma because you are not prepared to be a parent. Stop having unprotected sex. And I'm sitting here like,
and so your mom posted that to somebody else.
And hold on, my mom wrote this in 2018, 3 weeks before she died, and I'm just now finding it in 2022. And So first of all, I was shocked when I saw it because I'm like, my mom finally got it. My mom got that this is what she had did to us, put her trauma on us. And it's like I canceled my appointments and I could not stop crying. I could not stop crying. I just could not stop. And after that, I went to sleep. It was like one of them good old baby cries. Yeah, I was just gone. I was out. But it wasn't like one of those. It wasn't one of those cries of regret. It wasn't one of
Release.
Yes, it was a release. And then after I woke up, I could finally say, "Mommy, I love you." And I could say that because I it's like sometimes this is why it's important to never keep the door shut. Take a break, step away, move away if you got to, but always keep that avenue open because your parent could evolve. And do you want to be the type of person who believes in redemption, but closes off access to the redeeming qualities of allowing your parent to redeem themselves by telling you what you need to know so that the rest of your life can have more worth?
Oh, definitely. I mean, yeah. I mean, and you're the one that benefited from it by keeping it. Yeah. It's not like you were forgiving her for her.
Right.
I mean,
and it was like, well, no, actually I was forgiving her for her too, because the thing is,
well, also, but yeah.
Yeah, also, yeah. It was primarily for me, but it was also for her too, because they need to understand that you understand their trauma. And understanding is what they did not get throughout their childhood.
Clarity of mind, the acknowledgement, the finalizing of finally being on the same page at the same level, the same trauma right there, the same period, the same comma, like you are right there, finally connected the dots.
And it's like,
yeah, full circle.
Don't get me wrong, my son doesn't forget my son, and it's not right, but and he's not that behavior, but he understood what I did. He didn't excuse that I did it. But by us healing and connecting, one, I don't beat my kids. I refuse to, oh my God, because there's so many other different ways to learn from them and cultivate them. I love it when they make mistakes because it's like, my little daughter, she is doing some stuff in class and her mom is like, Mike! Ah! And I'm like, she's fine. Calm down. It's okay. It's okay. She's first of all, if your child don't test your gangster, you don't know how good of a parent you are. I don't care what no one says. Like if your child don't test your gangster, and it's like the parents that don't have skills, they cannot stand it when their child tests them because the feeling of being wrong when you always want to be right is not a good feeling. If you don't understand failure is a part of success, if you learn from it. And if you've never been allowed to fail as a child, you don't want to fail as an adult because failure as a child got you punished. And so failure as an adult gets you punished. And so you're like, we are hedonistic individuals. We gravitate towards pleasure and repel towards and resist towards pain. And so you won't even try to fail because you don't understand that strategically it's a part of success.
Well, the negative connotation that goes along with it,
yes,
automatically you don't want to make that choice.
And then it's like, in a world where as an adult, they don't owe you understanding. And they will not give you understanding for your failures in most places. Why deny the child understanding in a place where they're supposed to learn? They're going to be an adult longer than they've been a kid. So this is the one place, the one space where they should be allowed latitude to learn. And you got to have energy for that.
And compassion.
Yes. If you don't have energy and compassion and the patience for their failure, that means that you are not a subject master of the lesson. That once you begin to master, as Kelly masters mental health and the art of being a chaplain, he can have the energy for the failures of his parishioners, if you will. He can have the energy for that because I understand that this failure that you've made is strategic because that's a part of your learning process.
It is.
Let me recover you. Let me teach you how to recover yourself because I'm not going to always be around. But let me give you grace and mercy. Not that your failure isn't in fact a failure. It is a failure in the process because it's learning. And though it is a failure, you are not a failure.
Separating. That's wonderful, Mike.
You got to separate it because oftentimes people connect the failure of the lesson to the failure of the person, and they are not the same.
And we're seeing failure as a weakness and not as a strength because we cannot learn without failure.
Right. And it's like, I'm supposed to fail because I've never been here. You're not supposed to fail because you got a responsibility to teach me. But I can't understand you if I can't understand this because, and not
make it make sense.
Yes.
Yes.
So this was amazing.
It is, Mike. And what you're sharing about your mom, if I can share one story right quick.
Sure.
Somebody was telling me just the other day, this adult person was having a conversation with their adult mom, who's probably they think maybe a year or a few months, from crossing over an end of life. And my adult friend had a teenage or a young adult son who committed suicide. And I don't know if it's intentional or unintentional with a drug overdose. But anyway, somehow or another, my friend felt like her mother had contributed to the son's, aiding and abetting the son's addiction, which led to the suicide.
Wow.
And so this adult child and her mother was able to have this conversation, and basically the grandmother said, I felt like I was in a situation where either my daughter would hate me or my grandson would be on the streets, homeless.
Mm-hmm.
And for my friend to be able to hear that from her mom and understand like her mom and just provide that space of understanding. I mean, it's what you're talking about. And I love that you shared, your story with your mom and your life and the healing that took place just a few months ago. And man, I celebrate that. I celebrate that for you. I celebrate that for her.
Yeah. And everything I do is in honor of not just my mom, but my brother, because my brother received I received the physical of it. He received the ADHD part of it, where he wasn't ADHD, but she got him that diagnosis so one, she could get the check from it, and two, she had been telling him over and over again that he was this thing, so he became this thing.
He lived into the label.
He lived into the label, yes. He had heard it so much, it became a part of him, and I never forgave her for that. So that's why when I hear of people saying, I got ADHD, and I'm like,
no.
How many mental health
untreated ADHD in a manic episode, it becomes a hyperfixation. So he became her target of hyperfixation.
And where we put our attention, our energy goes, and then everything else follows.
And
Exactly.
all he wanted was her love. All he wanted was a dad. Here I am, the oldest brother. I don't know how to teach. I know how to keep you out of trouble, but I don't know how to teach you. So I don't know where to go with this. Otherwise, I would. And this is why parents, teach your kids how to be teachers. Teach them what they need to know and have them give it back to you over and over again. So that way, if you're not there, siblings can help each other. Like, that's a thing. Come on now, stop.
Be open to information. Be open to learning. That's the biggest thing.
This was an outstanding episode.
Willingness.
This was an outstanding episode. Final thoughts, you all.
It's always fun.
It is, Jen. And it's going to get bigger. It's going to get bigger. When people start to see that this is a safe space where they can actually get actionable items and results that they can walk away and try, and it gets them an outcome that they had been looking for all this time.
Well, it's also, this is real. This isn't coming out of the, DSM-5. This isn't coming out of a textbook. This is real life. No beating around the bush, no rainbows and butterflies. It's it. And it's actual interaction with real life people. So it's not scripted.
No. I have another chapter book. I forgot to even tell. I haven't updated I got to update it because I got a few more books I just published. One is called Ships. Where do you want to go? And this book is my first dive. Oh, here we go right here. Not too far away. This is my first dive into chapter books, which is, it looks small because it's an easy reader chapter book. And this is going to be one of many. And this book is actually teaching you about relationships. See, you can't have resources without relationships. That's number one. Number two, not every ship can take you to a place you want to go.
Come on now.
See, I'm going to give you a synopsis about this one. Dave had been a straight A student since pre-K. He did great by his parents. And they decided to gift him with the cruise to Life Island. Both Dave's parents had to go to work. And so they dropped him off at the port. No instructions, no guidance, no nothing. Right? How many parents tend to think that when the kid is 18, because he's been a good boy, he's ready to go find himself? That is not true. Oh, but that's what happens. So then he goes on the port and he ends up talking to these ships. Okay, so he had watched cartoons, right? It's got a little cartoonish effect to it.
Yeah.
You know, and then he's trying to go to Life Island. He talks to Tuggy. It's a tugboat. Tuggy's like, yeah, we're on the same body of water, but I can't take you to Life Island. My boat won't even make it that far. Maybe you can go down the port and maybe you can, see if there's another boat that will take you. But Tuggy is very nice to Dave. So then Dave, Dave's kind of a little sad, but he's like, no, don't be sad. You're going to find it. Just keep going. And then he takes a picture and moves on down the port. Finds an aircraft carrier, Admiral Mike. Same conversation. I don't want to ruin what the conversation is because it's fun. It's got a lot of information in here that your child can learn. Finds out you can't get on me either. I'm an air. It's other things you got to do that you're not right now. Maybe not right now. Then he goes across Margot Cargo. Now, an aircraft carrier can take you to an island. A cargo ship can take you to an island, but that's not what they're designed to do, right? And so these ships can make the journey, but that doesn't mean you can go. So then he goes to a submarine. Well, a nuclear submarine, you're not getting on that. That's a whole different ball game. If you couldn't get on the aircraft carrier, you couldn't get on a nuclear sub. So then he comes across a Defender ship, like one of the Coast Guard ships. that's actually guarding the port, and then they direct him to Dr. Relationship, which is a cruise ship. That's a ship he's been looking for all this time. But then the captains come along and they begin to teach him a lesson. And at the end of it, they're like, so your parents just dropped you off? No, nothing. You could have been hurt. Come on, we got more to talk about. And that's the cliffhanger that's going to lead to the next. It's a lot of, I'm telling you, not bad for a, 50-something, 47-page book where it has a lot of life lessons in here about relationships. They even get into a conversation about, can a commercial airplane land on an aircraft carrier? It's a logical question for a kid to ask. Airplane, aircraft carrier. And you begin to learn the differences that, nah, this thing is too big. It can't land here. National, it's a whole bunch of stuff. So then you begin to learn comparisons and contrast. Relationship, comparisons, contrast. Not every relationship is a good one.
Dynamics.
It's a lot of dynamics. And we don't have those conversations with our kids. And it's only $5. Look, I don't make my stuff expensive.
I'm glad you're doing what you do, man.
I'm trying.
Absolutely.
I'm trying. I've been trying to make New York Times bestseller. I just be glad if I could sell a lot of stuff by the New York Times. Okay. Look, I just want to give it to those who are willing to do the work. You know, and I get excited talking about my books because I've read them to children. And I see how they react when it just gets them talking, and you get that innocence and that passion and the desire to learn. And sometimes that's the only time they get to be free is in the story.
Hey, Mike, have you thought about branching off with your storylines? Like maybe diving in to books about like different mental health stuff where it's exposing the child and the parents to the intricacies, and where a child can look normal, but maybe they, like with Tourette's, they might, do something funny where it might be funny and you might want to laugh, but maybe we don't laugh all the time.
That would have to be a collaboration between me and someone who has that specialty. Because as you can see, when Chris, Chris, you're always awesome. But when Kelly asked me about the books, you saw how deep I was able to dive into it because I connect to it and I can teach you about it and almost give the book away because I relate to it. I don't want to speak to something that I don't relate to.
Let me connect it for you, because what comes out of trauma, mental health issues in young kids.
Sure.
So it would really go into helping the parents actually maybe see trauma in their own childhoods, but really open up the conversation that if something's happening with the child, it's a safe space. Or if they know that something else is going on with another child, it's a safe space.
While what you're saying is 1,000% correct and very important, I couldn't explain it to the level that you could because you have an understanding of that space that you reside in.
Gotcha.
I don't reside in that space. And so
Gotcha.
The worst thing that you can do is be, you know what I'm saying? You are
difference between sympathy and empathy.
Yes. And it's like,
Yep. I gotcha. I reach you.
I would be offensive.
I get. No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Explanation because, Chris, I'm staying in my lane. I'm staying
exactly. Yeah.
I'm giving to, and that's why I said
I
got no problem.
Exactly. That's why I asked.
Right. No problem.
No harm, no foul.
No, I get it. I got no problem collaborating with someone who can explain, and we become joint authors in the story. And I introduce through my platform someone who can speak to that. And I'm in the background like, and this is why it's important. That would, you know what I'm saying?
Hey, you could,
is half the answer.
hey, use TikTok. Use TikTok. You could get so many different little, have somebody submit, X, Y, and Z, their diagnosis, something about their trait that you might not think is related to the trait, but is a, red flag, and what somebody can do about it.
And those are resources. Because remember, Jen, we were talking about the family credit report, Kelly, and we were talking about recognizing the signs and symptoms of stroke and mental illness and responses. And I think it's very important to even talk about autism, because from what I understand, especially for autism, they have different sensitivities that other people have built resistance against, where these people have not built a resistance. And so they shield themselves from too much light, too much noise, and there's a reaction.
Sensory processing disorders.
Absolutely. And it's about understanding that this doesn't make them abnormal. It just takes them time, and they have to go to a safe space mentally, where when they say it's okay, not you say it's okay, they say it's okay, and they have the coping mechanisms to be able to cope and to process it in their time.
Yeah.
Then, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, we who have been blessed with whatever sense of normalcy we have, we take for granted these things until we lose it.
Yeah, for real.
And so we are instant gratification, wanting it now. They can't always get it right now. They got to get it when they can get it.
Man, you're later. Yeah, and I mean, what you're doing is empowering people. I think Heat and Zero just popped up a comment, that they're ready to do the work, and I just commend that. And my parents, I love my parents. They just needed resources like this.
Yeah,
exactly. The internet. Goodness gracious.
Yeah. So, Mike, we can donate to you, and that helps. And then we can also share your link around, and that helps. Yes.
So if you are on the Dad I Wish I Knew, that channel is monetized. So if you want to send a super chat, that'll help, right? If you see it scrolling across, get a $5 book for a kid. Every $5 gets a kid one of my social emotional books. Here's the Zelle, here's the PayPal, the Cash App, stuff like that. You can take any one of those links, and you can just $5. And for that $5, I find a kid and a parent who's willing to do the work, and I will donate. I'm not just giving books to kids, because some books will find their way to trash. We got time. No, I want kids who's going to do the work. And every time a person donates that $5, I keep track of it on my phone. I have a counter on my phone every time, so I know how many books I need to give away. And if you go to my What I Tell Myself first page right here, and even if you want to make an order too, you can go to MikeBrownsBooks.com. MikeBrownsBooks.com. Select whatever books you want. Place the order. I will ship them out myself, because I keep my own stock. Amazon is awesome. You can go to Amazon and buy it too. But if you get it from me, it supports me directly. Okay? You can do it either way. And I greatly appreciate it. And if you go to my Instagram page, What I Tell Myself First, you can scroll down and see the pictures of who I'm donating these books to, and who purchases the books. You'll see it's people of all races.
Yeah. So you're making it super easy. We just send you $5 with a few clicks, or $20, and you get the books in people's hands.
Absolutely. My phone lets me know the donations and who donated. I put that count to there, and then I know I'm going out to these daycares, going out to these places, going to places where children have to go to. Because in certain communities, you try to put it in the homes, that book is going to sit there and grow dust, because the parents don't read to the kids. But if I go places where education is valued, I am likely to get the returns on investment that the children actually need. And if you want to do the work in the home, let's make it happen. Let's go. Let's make it happen. Okay.
Yeah. And what if a parent's like might be watching this and like, man, you know, I can't even afford $5 right now. Can they hit you up and there may be some sort of assistance?
Yes, if that's the case, wonderful question, Kelly. I hadn't even thought about that. Man, if you, I love it. If you want the books, but you can't afford it and you're willing to do the work, you see that email that's about to come across this screen right now that has my Zelle. That's also my email too. Mike@whatitellmyselffirst.com. One of the many emails that I have, and I forgot to put the .com on the end, but you see what I'm saying? But Mike@whatitellmyselffirst.com. Let me know you want those books. Now, Chris, you said what's the age range? So the books range, I would say, from birth to about 4th grade. Okay, from birth to 4th grade. And the reason why I stick in that area because those are the most critical areas. But this is not limited to. Like I said, I use these books on adults too. Right? So it just depends. Okay.
I guess it's the context you want to use the books.
It is. Because if I'm dealing with an angry adult, I'm not coming out with the 50 Shades of Grey. I'm not coming out with I know why the cage bird sings. When darkness falls upon the room, still flowers are in bloom. They are not trying to hear any of that stuff. They're not trying to do it. They're not trying. When someone shows you who they are, they're not trying to do that. No. They need something simple because they're angry. They're not in the evolved brain. They're in the reptilian brain, the animalistic part, the part that's fight, flight, freeze, and emotions. They're not trying to. When I shake my hips and twerk my lips, a coffee cup, not one, but 2 sips. They are not trying to do that. No.
Mike.
Yeah.
Mike, I had surgery on Friday. They're going to bust my stitches open.
I don't bust the stitches open.
Oh.
You said, any thoughts on writing books for teens? Yeah, Chris, I am going to do that. I am. I just have to see. Let me tell you the process. Every book that I have written, no more than 3 days for me to write it. No more than 3 days. Matter of fact, including ships.
Wow.
I was at Fox Valley Mall in Aurora, and I wrote ships. 3/4 of it in one day, went to sleep. The second day, finished it up. Now, did it go through content editing and developmental editing? Yes. I paid for 2 editors this time because this is my first dive into a chapter book. And I thought Self-Publishing Review was going to take it. I was kind of scared. But they gave me a great review. They really did. And then the pictures, it's amazing. It really is. And shouts out to Byrony in England. She does the book formatting for me. And then Zoe Renucci, who does a lot of my book formatting for me. So they turned out an amazing product. An amazing product with all of my books. So yes,
what's hanging you up about teenagers?
Yeah, I'm going to get back to that. The whole thing's about teenagers. I'm going to get to that because it depends on what kind of teens we're talking. Remember, my area of focus is what? Dealing with anger. And when we look at teens, a lot of times, if you don't have eyes and ears for trauma, you see this teenager as a teenager, expecting them to have the mindset of a teenager. When they get to me, they're still operating in that 4th, 5th grade. That's the essential principle behind Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And that's in the back of every last one of my books, including this one. Maslow's hierarchy. The pyramid is in here. where you begin to see physiological safety, love and belonging, esteem, self-actualization. We want teenagers to be able to be higher levels of problem solving. If you understand Bloom's taxonomy, the higher order of thinking, but you can't bloom until you Maslow.
Right. Yeah.
And so if I could just get them to write a good book report. I used to be an adjunct professor of criminal justice. And if you would see some of the college papers that these teenagers would turn out, we got to get them back to the basics. So I get it. There are books for there are already plenty of wonderful authors who specialize in wonderful works for teens. I just want to get them into. Okay, I get it. It's a matter of taking your concepts and turning it into something that isn't so childish. I get it, Chris. You are not wrong. But
because Mike, you have a great way of breaking things down and putting it into a context where it is so freaking easy to absorb in any state of mind.
Isn't that what we do to children?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's why we're making these suggestions for you, because you're awesome at it.
Well, here's this, and I'm gonna tell you where
feed our soul, Mike.
I get it. I get it. I'm gonna feed your soul. But here's this. I've sold a lot of books, but I haven't sold where this really needs to be.
Well, I think with all of your live streams, I think you're really going to be able to put it out there and it's going to catch on, especially in this day and age where change is happening.
Casey Cox, you happened upon a wonderful session of mental health professionals and persons who've been through stuff who are talking about, it's a lot. It's a 2-hour live stream. Please, you gotta
talk about this and that. And
yeah,
this and that.
Talk about a lot of stuff. Here we go. Childhood trauma and tools to be able to help people. And Chris is like, come on, Mike, you got to write a team book. And Jen is like, yeah, Mike, you got to write a team book. And Kelly's like, you got to write a team book, but I like your books and what you got now. And so, oh, you know what? I do have a team book. And here's the team book that I got. I'm going to get to it. Matter of fact, let me get back to the website and show you, because I got a team book and you asked for it. And you may not like what you asked for, but you asked for it. It is called, wait, where are you at? Hold on, get it up there. No, where you at? Go up a little bit more. Bam, the trouble analysis. Another workbook to help you avoid trouble. Is it transactional, reciprocal, beneficial, logical, and emotional? If you get them into the process of starting to think about if it was transactional, what am I getting? What is this person getting? Are they qualified? Am I qualified? What are we even being asked to do? Right? Are we qualified to do it? Reciprocal. What am I getting out of it? What is this person getting out of it? Right? Is it beneficial? Right? What do I have? How much of these, what you telling me I'm going to get, how much is it going to cost me? Am I willing to pay how much it costs? Right? And there's more questions in that. Even if everything is transactional, reciprocal, beneficial, does it even make sense to even get into? And then emotional. Have I healed from my childhood trauma? Is it something that I have to have right now? Is it something that I could wait to have? If I were to get in trouble and I needed help, who would I go see? Well, let me go see this person now and see if it makes sense to even get into this. Does that stuff make sense?
Oh, yeah.
If we can get them to have critical thinking skills, then they will begin to analyze things logically, staying in the evolved brain and less in the emotional brain.
Well, and it also teaches the dynamic of communication skills because it's team building. Chris made a comment about teens aren't really into books. And these books are conversation starters. And as Mike called them, Trojan horses, because it opens up a conversation. These books aren't just for a teen to sit down to read by themselves per se. It's meant to have a conversation about.
And the trouble analysis has two sets of analyses, if that's how you say it, right? Two sets. So you're getting two uses out of one book. And it's got pages so that they can write in it. It's a workbook. It even goes so far into, are we into single parenting? Are we ready to be a single parent in the event the other person can't or won't do the job? These are questions that are not asked to them.
Good.
And shouts out to Chris Voss. Chris Voss talked about getting a person to say no and the no be a yes, because the no is confident. You got to be secure to say no.
For real. Yeah.
In these questions, it's getting to say no. It would not be too much trouble if. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I think that's good. And I love that it's teaching critical thinking, because how often do we learn that? You know, and it's also teaching, it's teaching moving out of dualistic thinking or binary thinking where there's only two options, do it or not do it.
Sure. Casey Cox asked an important question that I feel I'm going to let that question stand, and maybe you have experience in it or not. I know I don't, but I appreciate Casey Cox's presence here. Can I ask your thoughts on Colorado legalizing psilocybin and I don't know how to even pronounce that. I want to say
Psilocybin.
Yeah, psilocybin. Okay, psilocybin and psilocybin for therapeutic purposes. Just curious. I might dig into it later. Do you know anything about that?
Just a teeny tiny bit that has really been found to be effective with chronic PTSD. And a lot of vets are engaging in it. It's also legalized in Oregon too. And I just read an article, front page article in the newspaper about a vet, Air Force vet who nothing else really worked. And then when this became legalized, he started pursuing this, and it really helped with chronic PTSD. And that's all I really know.
Okay. Well, I hope that helps you, Casey Cox. Jen, you have anything to add if you know? Because I know I can't even speak to it.
I'm in Oregon. I know pretty much what Kelly just said. I've heard really awesome things about it, that it's done wonderful things.
Jen, did you just say you're in Oregon?
Yep.
I'm in Bend.
I'm in Portland. I'll be coming down that way tomorrow.
How is
going to Carson?
Jen, have you ever watched Portlandia?
Yeah, I tried.
Okay. It was slightly funny. I just like Fred Armstead. Armstead, I hope I'm saying his name right. Chris, you said true, and we're going to end with this. Chris, you said true, but it isn't an interest in teens naturally. Unfortunately, they have been conditioned through society and parents to watch videos and be on their phones rather than to read. And so that's why this isn't just a book, it's a workbook.
Right.
That's why I said this is for those teens and parents who are willing to do the work. See, the problem becomes where you've got some employers or a lot of employers who will say, these kids don't have a strong work ethic. Well, yeah, look at some of the homes they're coming from, or majority of the homes they're coming from. But what do you expect, right? And so if you look at those parents who have done the work at home, they can find value in these books only work if people find value in the books. And so that's why I say, for me, the educational space is probably my best. And no, you're fine. No, you say you didn't realize it was work, but that's fine, Chris. It's all good. Because the thing is this, I also think that we don't give children the benefit of the doubt that if we find ways to introduce things to them instead of giving up on them so quickly, we become frustrated with what we see in our society, rightfully so, that unfortunately we generalize it too soon. I want to have a person prove to me a reason why I need to move on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Prove to me that you don't value it. And I'm not saying do the song and dance, but just say one or two things, right? If you all saw the gas station video, I could have easily ignored her, easily moved on. You can call me out my name, cuss me. I don't care about that. But prove to me you don't want to talk. Prove to me you're not willing to listen. She was willing to listen. And so the conversation continued to go on, and it ended up in something great. And people say, oh my God, you got an abundance of patience, Mike. I don't know how you do it. Little do they know, that is not the worst person I have ever done with in my life. I have dealt with people far, and she's not worse. She is a wonderful person, but I have dealt with people far worse who had horrible intentions. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. And she was willing to listen.
Yeah. You know, and even if it was just for that moment and that's where it ended, at least in that moment, a soft answer turned away wrath. When this person's voice is up here, you would be surprised. You see my mouth moving, but you don't hear anything coming out. So because you have the natural humanistic desire to want to hear what I got to say, it's going to psychologically force you to lower your voice. Now, psychologically, I brought you down to a level. Now we can talk. I'm not your enemy. You did nothing to me. You're okay. You see, it's just simple things like that. Simple things like that. But you gotta, I know where I'm going with this, is chess. You gotta think 3 steps ahead of your next move because of your present move.
Yep.
This is where you are. You gotta think 3 steps ahead of your next move.
Critical thinking.
Yeah, that's all it is. And some people will say, well, in chess, you got to think 17 steps. Look, some people are not thinking that far ahead. Like, some people only see the trees. We want to get them to see the forest. You want to have them worry about the preservation of the squirrels. Look, they maybe they're not thinking that far into it. Let's just get them to think that there is a forest that they have to worry about, and then they can see the whole forest and like, you know what? This is just one tree. Let's exercise just a little bit of patience. This tree has value. Yeah, okay, you mad right now. You won't be mad forever. General Colin
Or it was a shadow.
Yeah. General Colin Powell said, get mad and get over it. Get mad and get over it. It's okay for you to be mad. You're supposed to be mad. It's a natural thing to be mad. But it takes a lot of energy to be mad. And you don't have that kind of energy forever. Now, some people do keep it going on and on and on. But deep down inside, it's the continuation of someone else's hurt. And it's a snowball effect. Let's roll that back. Let's roll that back. All right, y'all. I appreciate you all so much. Please consider.
I love how we go off on tangents.
We do.
I love it.
We do. And it's amazing. Kelly, you've been amazing. Jen, you've been amazing. The comment section has been amazing. Please consider going to MikeBrownsBooks.com, ordering yourself or a loved one a book, or even donating the $5, just $5 for one book to a child. And then you can follow my Instagram page, What I Tell Myself First, to go on ahead and see who I give these books to. I post it up all the time. You know, I appreciate you all. If you haven't followed the Dad I Wish I Knew page, That's what this content is for. That's what this content is for. And though I got 650 something thousand subs on YouTube, I got 17 people. And guess what? Those are the 17 that are like, no, it's too valuable for me to be bugging out. It's too valuable. And this same replay, and then I'll land with this, Kelly and Jen will get the last words. I don't want the last word. This will be replayed on my podcast, On the Mic with Mike. It's anywhere you can find a podcast, Apple, Spotify, On the Mic with Mike. So if you can't catch it on YouTube, you can listen to it, because this is going to go up. Oh, my God, this was so important. All right, last words, y'all. I'm not saying nothing else.
I just want to thank you, brother, man. I just appreciate what you do. Glad, the honor to be here, and just, man, appreciate your vulnerability and your transparency and what you shared about you.
You're always welcome to come back. It was a pleasure having you on. I learned a lot from you, just in providing what you've provided. For reals.
All right, now.
Yep. Jen.
Hey, Mike. Thank you.
You're welcome. And good luck on your surgery tomorrow.
Yeah, Jen.
No, I had surgery on Friday.
Oh, yes. I wasn't thinking. I'm sitting here like, you got stitches before your surgery. I wasn't thinking.
No, you're going to bust my stitches open.
And that's an expression, but for you, it's literal. Oh my God.
Quite literally.
Okay,
And by the way, you're going to get the last word.
It's half laugh. Yeah. KC Cox, if you want to collab with me, Mike at whatitellmyselffirst.com or 773 area code 644-5000. 773-644-5000. We can definitely do that. All right, you all, those of you all in the comment, Chris, I appreciate you. I told you. Matter of fact, I'm gonna take a little segment and I'm gonna push it out and I'm gonna post it up, because that was an awesome quote that you did. Chris, you got to be an author, and if you're not an author, that's a good one that you did. That was a good one about happiness. That was amazing. I said, I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna quote you in it. Oh, it was amazing because it hit. It worked. It worked. It worked. All right. I appreciate you said you're on your way. Outstanding. Outstanding. All right, you all. Have a wonderful night. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. That I wish I knew.
Bye.
Until next time. Go ahead, Jen. Or you just
Huh?
said,
What?
oh,
I was just saying bye before you did, so you can have the last word, because you said you didn't want the last word. And I'm going to make sure you have the last word, so I'm going on mute. Thanks, Mike.
Sad face, Jen. Don't you laugh. You got stitches. All right. Appreciate you all. Until next time.